Okay, Jay, we're live. Okay, welcome everybody to Wall Street Reporter's Discovery Day live stream for today, October 29th. We have with us back again is Jay Hutton, the CEO of VSBLTY Group, VSBY, on the CSE, VSBGF over the counter. Jay, welcome back.
Thank you, Jack.
Jay, we get a lot of exciting things have been happening since we've last had you on. I think the news that came out yesterday, your deal in Guatemala. Can you, the Guatemala airport deal? Can you kind of explain what that's all about, and is this going to be the start of a lot more activity in Latin America?
Well, Latin America is probably maybe 6 weeks to 8 weeks behind North America. I'm not sure if that's a good thing or a bad thing with respect to the virus, but we're beginning to see the openings of the businesses. And we had this deal cooking for probably 6 months with a partner down there called Branding Global. Douglas Ovally, who's a Guatemalan, runs a very large digital out-of-home agency. And they're in the business of doing billboards and bus shelters and that sort of category of advertisement. Among the assets he has in his stable of customers is the La Aurora Airport in Guatemala City, which has somewhere in the neighborhood of 2.5 to 3 million visitors a year. Those were pre-COVID numbers. Who knows what they'll be now? But he's got this exclusive advertising relationship with them. And what's been needed in advertising for a very long time is this notion of measurement, using camera technology to measure your audience. This may be just basic footfall. These are the number of people that see my display. And of course, the greater granularity brought to us by computer vision, the ability to see gender, age, dwell time, parse the data out by hour, by minute, by moment, so that if you have multiple advertisers on a digital display, maybe you have 6 or 8 and they rotate. We've all seen that. We can measure the performance of each advertiser against one another, against the demographic, etc. So it's extremely valuable.
It's a game changer. It's actually
a game changer. It does, as we discussed last time we spoke, Jack, it does for out-of-home advertising what Google did for the internet in 1997. I mean, and that's not a ridiculous hyperbolic statement. That's precisely what it does. And this is going to, and is now, bringing into force the change of media purchase patterns. The reason why physical spaces have been considered to be interesting but not all that attractive is this terrible notion that you can't measure it. If you can't measure it, you don't have an ROI. So it's like a thumbnail ROI. We think it's something like this value. Now that we've got non-inference based, non-subjective based measurement, by that I mean it used to be that you measured the performance of a digital billboard in an airport by sending a couple of co-eds in on a Saturday afternoon with clipboards. And what they did was they watched people and they made notations, manual notations on how people engage with the billboard. We're getting past that. And by the way, that entire modality was subject to, as you can imagine, human error, hyperbole, all sorts of, because as a billboard owner, it's in my interest to exaggerate the audience, because when I exaggerate the audience, I get more money for my real estate. And so the media companies, the guys that purchase advertising, were tired of it. And they wanted to get to a point where no longer were they subjected to this random number that comes up, that these guys come up with. So camera technology solves all that and now gives us a place where we have an auditable, verifiable, non-subjective, objective reference to how many people, how many genders, what genders, how many males, how many females, how many 35-year-olds. All of that breakdown is now available in a sort of pretty objective modality without any concern that it's subject to hyperbole.
Okay, and this is kind of where like your AI, the big data component of your technology comes in. Right. You're able to offer that analytics, and I think it's really. I think in terms of people, the people, anyone who's watching this, they really kind of need to understand how much of a kind of a game changer this is for the advertising world, marketing world, because they used to say, before Google came along with analytics, they used to say, half of all advertising spending was wasted. You just don't know which half. So people had to spend, and
I've heard that. Yeah.
I think it was but with the online world, obviously the reason why Google, everybody's been so successful is you have this analytics, you can measure everything, and you can see exactly where your ROI is. With billboards, the out of home, outdoors, you can't now finally they're able to actually able to bring those analytics in, and that's
absolutely right. And that's the Guatemala City Airport story. Half of it is advertising support, providing that analytics layer that allows you to sell your media at what you might imagine to be a slightly enhanced value. Now you've got measurement, now it's worth more. That's one component of it. The second component of it, because we know facial recognition in airports is valuable, it's already used. Think about facial recognition when it's connected to or delivered in concert with impressions that are built to drive your eyeballs. The content is built so that you look at it. When you look at it, we now get a shot of your face dead on, and now we have a security outcome that is superior to traditional security, because traditional security, who's going around looking at cameras? Why would you look at cameras? They're in the ceiling. They might be 10 meters up, and they're looking down at you. They're looking at my bald spot. They're not looking at my face. So the idea of combining security with advertising is like made in heaven, because
this is actually the first time I think this is the first time you've brought this up. This makes a lot of sense, because they're looking, people, they can't help themselves. They're going to look at that billboard if it's eye catching.
They may only look for a second and a half, Jack, but we don't need that.
The camera.
Right. Well, it's a tragedy that this is the first time I brought it up, frankly. That's my job.
That's actually genius. Okay, so this is actually genius. That makes the whole thing work. Okay, so we kind of started talking about the advertising component, which again is a game changer. For the ad industry, multi-billion dollars. Now that they have analytics, they have value. They can obviously change out the ads in real time. They can see how much they're worth, et cetera, et cetera. They can charge more for them. So all of a sudden, or they can have dynamic pricing.
What they're going to do is they're going to siphon off media spend from the internet, because think about it. The internet is a superior place, or certainly equally inferior as an airport. But if you take that advertising to a store, if you're Coca-Cola, do you want to deliver impressions on the internet or in a store? Because in a store, you can buy immediately. You can buy that which is being promoted to you. So the store, Jack, is exploding. They are just discovering the shelves we have in retail. Oh my God, they're valuable. They're valuable as real estate for advertising. We talked to a big box retailer last week, and it was really interesting to me because the language is changing, Jack. They're talking about, we had 480 million. They didn't say consumers. They didn't say shoppers. They said impressions. We have 480 million impressions that came into our store last year. Not shoppers, not consumers, impressions. And that tells you that somewhere in the executive ranks of those organizations, they're beginning to understand that their store itself has media value.
Okay.
So they're beginning that pivot.
Okay. Yeah, that's okay. So that's very interesting. So basically they're looking to monetize anybody who walks in there. That the store basically becomes like for lack of a better word, like a TV show or whatever it is. So that all the shelves.
It's a media channel.
What we should do is, I think, okay, so we have, we do have, actually, we got questions coming in. I'm going to jump to the live audience questions. If we can, though, we're going to have a lot of new people watching this, and I always like to show your video.
Sure.
Because that really explains everything we're talking about a lot better than seeing is believing. Can you show us, just give us a quick demo?
In order for you to share that video, it's 3 steps. So be patient with me.
Okay. And meanwhile, I'll pop up some questions.
Here we go.
We'll get to. Okay, hang on a second. Okay, let's go to. Okay, here we go.
It's dynamic and digital. More than an animated sign, a creative ad, or a head-turning spectacular. Digital signage with the right software can become an invaluable analytics tool. That's where visibility comes in. VSBLTY's SaaS software and optics empower digital display to make it smarter, with the ability to recognize who is looking at its message, interacting with them, and engaging by the brands that play on them. And all this happens in real time. VSBLTY takes passive digital signage and makes it proactive. Now, with proactive digital displays, VSBLTY provides more actionable intelligence than ever before. VSBLTY software has proprietary facial analytics that reveal viewer demographic profiles, including age and gender, mood state, as well as interactivity, length of engagement, number of impressions, and even the percentage of people looking at the sign. In addition to enhancing the customer experience, the brand's presence, and measuring purchase patterns, digital signage can now help aid in public safety with VSBLTY Vector. With this advanced software, digital place-based signage equipped with VSBLTY software can view crowded public venues, identifying persons of interest by cross-referencing law enforcement and watch list databases. In seconds, Vector will notify security to mobilize, intercept, and prevent possible tragic events from happening. This enhancement to current security and surveillance programs make Vector an invaluable tool in the war against terror. And coming in our next software release, with advanced object recognition and machine learning, we can identify objects, including weapons, that pose a potential threat to any venue. This makes VSBLTY Vector the perfect addition to new or existing digital signage being deployed in all retail and out-of-home applications. An enhancement to security in airports, transit hubs, public squares, sports stadiums, schools, and university campuses, making the future of digital place-based media smarter and more dynamic and ubiquitous than ever before.
Okay, well, it's great stuff. So I think anybody watching this will now they'll kind of understand like what we're talking about. So to finish off, we're going to jump to the audience questions. To finish off the Guatemala deal, primarily they're going to use your technology for two things. One is the the ad, the kind of the analytics for the ads, but also for the security component, right?
Absolutely right, and not just in the airport. The airport's only the beginning. We have. So one of the things I've learned as a Canadian, having spent a good deal of time traveling into Latin America, it's unsafe. And they understand it's unsafe, and they're basically paralyzed with what to do about that lack of safety, because the solutions available to them historically have been 10 times, 20 times what they could afford. So it's a great example in Mexico City. If you'd allow me to pivot for just a moment, is in the last 10 years, 10,000 cameras have been deployed in Mexico City at a value of about $110 million. We've done 5,000 cameras with our integrator in Mexico City for less than 1/10 of that. And so it's a game changer. And the reality is the traditional deployments that have been put in place have this nemesis of surveillance. The Achilles heel of traditional surveillance is that it is forensic. It's used investigatively after the fact, but it's not used for prevention. AI, because AI monitors the feeds in real time, alerts you, Jack, the operator, as to something that needs to be looked at. Not tomorrow, not next week, but now. And because you have this overwhelming number of feeds coming into you in the operations center, there's this story at the MGM of these guys, two guys monitoring 1,600 feeds. No wonder they missed something. We're human beings. But the idea of middleware that scans all those feeds in real time and provides feedback as to what's worthwhile looking at, maybe it's not a problem, but it's different. Look at this. That's the benefit of computer vision, artificial intelligence in the surveillance world. And that's why it's having such enormous impact.
Yeah, no, definitely. And you have, I mean, you talk about Guatemala, you have, El Salvador, Honduras, and that's where, most of the violence in Latin America. And then, you have the rest of the kind of the continent, so to speak. They obviously they have concerns, but this is, it's a global issue. It's, it's Europe, it's Asia, it's, the Middle East, Africa. I mean,
in Guatemala alone, you'll see deployments in transit, additional airport deployments, and then government deployments in short order with us, because
Okay.
they just have a desperate need for it.
So basically you're gonna roll out in Guatemala, and that I think that could be that you're in Mexico right now, so this could be a great kind of case study which other countries can use, other cities can use. If you can show a reduction in crime or whatever it is, it would be a game changer.
Yeah. I mean, the reason why this momentum is occurring has really nothing to do with the core technology, even though I'm very proud of it and it's world class. It's the fact that in Mexico, the one county in Mexico City that's deployed the most of these, Cuayamalpa, they've got 660 cameras right now, and they may have more now, but that's my last number. And crime, and that was the 11th safest county in Mexico City. Mexico City is divided up into like boroughs, like Manhattan, except instead of 5, there's 11. And it was the most unsafe county, and now it's the safest county. 40% crime reduction in 6 months. Camera network. That's the reason why. Top to bottom.
You know, I think one thing we should also, I kind of want to bring up, which is really important for kind of investors, to be able to kind of understand the stock, is that really you're kind of a big data company. So all this, the machine learning, every time it kind of builds and builds. So the value is constantly increasing. This is exactly what we see with all the stocks in the big data world, which they, like Amazon, whatever. All that AI, they just become more and more valuable literally every minute.
There's a lot of moving parts to the Visibility public company story, and I don't often get to tell that part of it, but it's enormously valuable. And because you can't talk about everything in the depth you want to talk about it, but in 30 seconds, big data. Imagine, if you will, Visibility gets to the point where we have 100,000 endpoints at Safeways, Albertsons, Loblaws. It spans 25 major markets, and we have deployments, and we're gathering data 24/7 in each of those deployments. Now you might think, oh, that's benign, it's just data, but here's the value. Let's say we do a Coke campaign in St. Louis, and we do that same campaign in Miami. I can compare the velocity of the SKU of the actual part number, because we get transaction log data. We know the velocity of the sales, and we can compare the two marketplaces. Maybe one of them is pushing Diet Coke, and maybe one of them is pushing a new energy drink. We can compare that in real time. Well, isn't that what Nielsen, the ratings company, does?
It's what Google, it's what makes Google valuable.
Right. But we do it in real time.
In the real world, yeah.
With granularity, with depth of demographic, male, female, age range, sentiment, proximity, all those things in real time. The value of this company in 10 years is our data repository. Isn't anything else.
Yeah, I think I was going to use the word, like, in other words, the camera that puts the data into your computer, the AI. I was calling it behavior patterns, but it's really sentiment, right? In other words, the way somebody's eyes move or whatever it is before they make a purchase or before they, get violent. There is a certain behavioral change, right? Or
in the shopper marketing world, it's blocking and tackling. It's footfall, starting with just the number of people.
Yeah.
Their movement within the aisle. Do they spend time in front of the Nescafe or in front of the Starbucks coffee? And who are they? Are they male? Are they female? What age range are they? If you just have a handle on that data and you're able to slice and dice it the way we can do it, that's a game changer. Just that in and of itself. And then we start adding capabilities to the technology to do algorithm-based behavioral tracking, which is what you're talking about. That's next gen. That's really exciting, because then you've got a holy grail. You've got data analytics in the store that have never been done before.
Okay, so let's we could talk about this stuff for hours, but let's jump into some audience questions, because so Phil is asking, are there privacy concerns with the facial recognition?
Excellent and informed question. In the states, in the 50 states, 2 states have specific prohibition on what's considered, and this is the phraseology they use, non-consensual marketing analytics. In Texas and Illinois, it's illegal for me to put a camera up that even grabs anonymous data. But in everywhere else, it's specifically allowed, even in the draconian rules that are governing the new draconian rules that are governing the state of California and their privacy protection. We collect metadata, non-identifiable anonymous data that would be inert and not valuable if you were to discover it in a dumpster in the back of a shopping store someplace. We cannot reconstruct our data to infer identity. We don't capture identity. Nothing about what we do is illegal. When you move into the security space, you have a specific allowance in security to do surveillance. And if you have long-term shoplifters, you have the right as a retailer to look for them proactively. Today, that looking for them involves a loss prevention officer with a clipboard. That's the way they do it today. And pictures on the clipboard, and we're just making it electronic.
Okay, we got an interesting question coming from Douglas. I think what he's asking, I mean, you could read this, Jay, but I think what he's asking is, when is there going to be an inflection point when advertisers are going to use your technology versus, you know, the kind of the whatever the analog old out methods right now?
It's an excellent question. I think he might be from the industry. Part of what we have to do is we have to provide measurement and a glossary that is consistent with the way media buyers buy media. And by that, I mean they mostly buy based upon impressions. If you know anything about Google Analytics, they have this concept of impressions and they have concept of click-through. A click-through is worth more because it's inferred attention. An impression is just a view, a page view, if you will. We have some of the same things going on in our marketplace, but there's no corollary. There's no glossary to identify demographic, those sorts of things. So we have to invoke upon the industry a brand new way of talking about the business, but we can't blow up the impression terminology because they don't know how to buy anywhere else. They don't know how to buy platforms that aren't measured by impressions. So even though it's in our instincts to talk less about impressions and more about demographic because that's more valuable, we can't leave impressions. So it's an interesting pivot point because a lot of the media buyers are 45 plus, and we're not going to teach them a new way of buying media. So it's an interesting challenge, but one the industry is slowly adopting to. As standard evolve.
Okay, we got some really good questions coming in. Okay, so Sean's asking, regards to Guatemala for both retail and security, can you explain how your tech functions to apply to both of these different market segments?
Yeah, so Guatemala, to be clear, isn't technically a retail deployment. It is absolutely a security deployment, but it's not a retail deployment. It's more of a what I might call a digital out-of-home deployment. So it's the cameras sit co-resident with large format display. Toyota, General Motors, you know, I can't think of Tequila, of course. We measure the number of people that are looking at those impressions when those impressions are delivered. When that video is delivered, we measure the audience in real time. That's not technically a retail deployment, although some of the same technology is applied in retail. So Guatemala sits in that digital out-of-home space in the measurement category. The same cameras embedded with the digital display are looking for persons of interest, are looking for weapons, are looking for things that are within a security requirement. And as I said before, because we've built content on the display that is meant to attract your eyeballs, we now coincidentally increase the efficacy of facial recognition.
Okay, here's a question I think which I think this is kind of the main part of the story. It's probably bigger than everything else that we talk. And what's the value of the data once you have, you know, this? I guess he referred to this endpoints, a critical mass of endpoints. I think that's probably a more intelligent way of asking what I was trying to ask before. What's going to be the value of this? Let's say you have, you know, is that what you call it, endpoints?
Yeah, sure. Yeah.
Okay. So let's say you have
camera is an endpoint.
Oh, okay. Is that what it means? I thought it was the behavior that pieces of behavior.
You could call it that, but for us, what we look at is a data collection device.
Oh, I see. Okay, I didn't understand the question. Okay, so what's the answer to this question?
It's a really good question, and it's sort of unknown at the moment. It's a critical mass question. How big does it have to be before it becomes valuable as data and data alone? And so the answer is somewhere in the neighborhood of half of the DMAs. Now I'm really turning into an agency wacko. DMA is the largest media markets. There's 25 of them. They're also referred to as the NFL cities, which is easy for those of us that are football fans to understand. If you're deployed with reasonable population in each of the NFL cities, you have critical mass. Now you're at a place where Toyota or General Motors or Starbucks is going to buy impressions because it's a broad audience. You have reach. In media terms, you talk about distribution, you talk about reach, not really unlike YouTube, the number of views. This is the rough equivalent to that. So the data, and this is really interesting, every time we're in a contract negotiation with one of our customers, the data becomes the sticking point. Who owns the data? And every single time so far with big brands, Tyson Foods, Cernowski, Sargento Cheese, we've won that battle, saying at a very minimum, we co-own the data, but have the exclusive right to monetize the data. All they care about is their own data. How do people react and respond to Sargento Cheese as an example? But I want Sargento Cheese data because I want to sell it to Kraft. Kraft has value, derives value from that data. And I've got it on a reach. So to answer Jack's question, the other Jack, it's reach, it's distribution. And somewhere in the neighborhood of 50 to 100,000 endpoints is where it really starts to cook. But before that becomes increasing value as you climb up to those numbers.
Okay, so I think also the point is once you have, as you get more and more of this data, again, the value of the company grows. So the company's not even valued based on a multiple of revenues. It's really for a strategic buyer like a Google, a Facebook, any of these guys who are, an Alibaba. Okay, you have these companies. You have a bunch of companies in Asia now. Massive valuations who are in the e-commerce, fintech space. For them to be able to get this data, buy a turnkey operation and then to leverage that could be worth, I don't know, $1 billion plus. Why not? I mean, instead of them having to spend, 3 years to get this data, it's just time to market.
Our company value at the moment, in my opinion, is based upon two things and is rapidly becoming thing number 3 and will become thing number 4 after that. Those two things are the tech, the distribution. We have done a really good job identifying massive multi-billion-dollar companies who are embedded to us in a very strategic way as distribution partners. That is hard to do, really hard to do, but they value our agility and we value their reach. So it's a good marriage. The third thing is, as we inflect to revenue, that inflection has begun this year. We'll do our first 7-figure year. And that when we do that this year, we'll probably exit this year in the 4 to 6 million billings basis. When we do that, that sets up a $15 to $20 million a year next year. So that's the third thing we'll be valued on, which I don't think we're fully valued on yet. And then the fourth thing is the value of the data. Tech, distribution, revenue, data. That's how our value will and that road has just begun. Right?
Okay. And when you said the distribution, were you referring to the deal Sensormatic for the
Sensormatic? We have another one that's not yet announced. It's another $17 billion company, UST Global, Intel to some degree, Synect Airport Media. We have various elements of distribution that are going to be very valuable as we grow this company.
Okay, so Adrian is asking, will the forecasted revenue, are they included in the backlog? You have a backlog? Is it the forecast?
Yeah, so this is the way SaaS works. It's the blocking and tackling of SaaS.
Oh, this is okay, that's what I meant by the backlog. Is that what do you call the booked revenues? That's the.
So SaaS is billed. You bill it. You land the contract. It's a 3-year contract that has X value. You bill it, and then as it gets deployed, say it's a 3-year contract. 1/36 of that contract gets recognized as revenue per month. This is the accounting rules. They're not my rules. So we begin to speak about our business both in terms of billings, in the bag, done, and bookings. Sorry, bookings is in the bag, done. Billings is recognized on a month-to-month basis. Sorry, didn't mean to create confusion.
Okay. Do you own any IP?
100% of our IP is owned, save and except for some of the algorithms, some of the core formulaic math that runs on our computers to determine Jack's age. that's a commodity category. You would never build that. You would always license that. And most of the licensing that we have is with our dear partner Intel, with whom we've been working very closely for many years now.
Okay, so Dale is asking about Sensormatic. You have an update on this relationship?
Yes, Sensormatic, actually the largest deal in the company's history is being worked on right now between us and Sensormatic. They've just began their 2021 fiscal year, and they've identified a group of people that are going to be the stalwarts, or the sort of the champions of our product. And they're big and they're slow, but they have incredible influence in the largest brands in the world. So they have 185,000 retail customers. So for us, it's just a matter of training them and getting them to the place where they need to be, which they aren't yet, but are slowly getting there. And then it's hands off, and they'll work their magic.
Okay, so Jay, I'm not sure if I understand this question. I think this popped up during an earlier discussion. You have a comment on this?
It's a conjecture, but we have one very large deal that will get us there in one contract. I expect that'll be done before the end of the year. It's the largest deal in the company's history. It's with large, well-recognized brands. If I was to throw them out right now, everyone would understand who they are. And I think that, although it should be said that as we climb to the place where the data itself is independently valuable, we're generating revenue. It's not like we have to twiddle our thumbs and wait for that halcyon day to arrive. The data is just another repository of value that we haven't really tapped yet. We have those first three, as I mentioned before.
Yeah, it's almost like you have a hotel, and then underneath that hotel there's 50 million barrels of oil. Sure.
Yeah.
And you just haven't.
Yeah.
When somebody buys that hotel and they're buying the oil at the end of the day, right?
Right.
So this is like a Texas thing. I don't know if we get anybody from Texas watching, but people will figure it out. So basically, that's what you have. You have your data it's more valuable than the oil.
Yeah.
Okay. So Jack Topolowski, we got a lot of Jacks here. He's asking the Smart City Initiative in Mexico City. Great results. Okay, so you had good. So the update. You've had great results in crime reduction. So I guess is there opportunity to expand? So I guess that's what we've been talking about, right? The expansion
earlier. Yeah. In fact, this month, another one of those counties in Mexico City, Benito Juarez, will be deploying what I would call our next generation of product, which further reduces the cost by another 40%. This is why Intel is so intimately involved. They are underwriting the entire movement to the new configuration that is in final testing right now in Hillsboro, Oregon, in an Intel lab. And when that gets confirmed, and we expect that in the next 7 to 10 days, it'll be deployed in Mexico City, and it'll be the first in the world, a Wi-Fi 6 network, which is a local 5G-like technology deployed in Mexico City running our technology. So we're delighted about that. It's a world first, as far as we know.
Okay. Yeah. I mean, the more I think about it, the data, having this data that you're constantly, accumulating is a tremendous asset. It's like, because we've had, I don't know, are you following some of the valuations, like, in the M&A space of like private valuations or the VC valuations of, data, companies like in the data. I mean, some of these things are being valued at what, a couple $100 million when they have around as much as you have, and the market cap of VSBY is what, 15 million right now?
Yeah, it's frustrating, but I'm a sort of sticking to the grindstone, getting it done, because I do believe that the times when we get a 10 or 15x are just ahead of us. We just need to start parking some of these deals and making them known. Part of the problem we have, as I may have inferred earlier, is we do a lot of business with a lot of very large companies, and as it relates to public disclosure, we have a foot on the gas, they have a foot on the brake, and it's always negotiating, well, how it's disclosed and when it's disclosed. I'm firmly believe that if the market knew what we're doing sort of in detail, we'd be at a different valuation.
Okay. Okay. So speaking of that, like, what kind of news flow, can investors expect, and toward, as we get into the end of the year? You got this Guatemala deal. What else do you have in the pipeline?
3 or 4 significant milestones. As I may have mentioned before, I think I did mention before, the largest deal the company's done in the history of the company is in flight right now. It's already been documented in the form of a letter of intent. It is going into contract negotiation right now. It's with a well-known international brand, one of the largest in the world, and it's a deployment into 5,000 to 10,000 locations.
Okay.
And that's a significant deal for us. It is not done right now, but we expect it will be done and disclosed before the end of the year.
Okay. Oh, so this we've saved the best for last year. So you have a big deal that's in the pipeline. This is the takeaway from this video, today's video.
We do, and I want to be very careful and circumspect about how I speak about it because I'm not a cowboy, but it is a deal that is likely to get done, and it's not the only sort of crystallizing event that we have. We also have a very significant development with a large semiconductor developer where we're actually collaborating on building our technology. Think of those algorithms that we talked about, sitting not on compute, not on a server, but on camera. On the camera itself. And that's in final development right now. It's actually in beta, again, in Hillsboro, Oregon, testing that. And that'll be deployed in the late November. And that, of course, is a significant deal for us as well, because it would represent what we understand to be the world's first camera edge deployment of AI algorithms. Big deal.
Oh, that's very interesting. Okay, so we got... right at the end of the video, you announced two major key.
I referred them. I referred to
key pieces of information here. Okay, so we got. Let's see. Okay, no. Oh, here we got a couple questions that came in here. Let's go. I think we got time for one or two more questions. Okay, so Jeremy's asking, can you elaborate on your partnership with Intel? Do they own part of VSBY?
They do not. They do not. We had a dance with Intel Capital early days, but Intel Capital, to their enormous credit, operates like a VC, and I know the VC playbook, and we didn't want to play the VC playbook. Long story that I'm happy to go into in greater depth, but they do not own a piece of our company, at least not yet. They are, however, a very strategic partner for us. The bulk of our 2020 revenue will be with Intel as a customer. Two enormously valuable strategic development efforts are with Intel as a co-development partner. And as we go into next year, we'll be announcing more deals that we're doing with Intel. All of them either significant revenue generation or significantly strategic.
Can a chip sit on a camera or compute algorithms without setting fire?
I hope so. If not, we're going to have to revisit our liability insurance.
Okay, excellent. Okay, so Jay, so let's kind of recap. We'll ask you the last question. Favorite here is, at this moment in time, what top 3 reasons why investors should consider VSBY?
Well, as I said before, in terms of how we build the value picture of visibility, it's not really a wildly different answer. We have world-class technology that's actually getting better. We have incredibly valuable and high-profile strategic partners, Sensormatic, UST Global, more to come, Intel. And thirdly, we've just begun the inflection to revenue. And really, that's what we all look for as investors. I also, even because I'm old and been around, I'm also an investor. And when I invest, I look for companies that are about to make a move. And that is visibility, no doubt about it.
Okay, on that note, Jay, I want to thank you. We'll have you back probably in a few weeks. We'll look forward to more news. And thank you, everybody, for joining our live stream and all the great questions. You probably had a couple of your competitors are probably in today's live stream. The questions are too good.
Thank you very much, Jack.